Good afternoon. Welcome to Options Center. While we're waiting for this rotation, this move in the market, we're gonna take a look at a few different popular indicators that are not confirming this move, and so that are giving negative divergence. And we'll hear this word over and over until those things change. So this is a major top. And so it's just been a topping process, to say the least. And we're going to take a look at those. So, and then we'll do a regular analysis around the horn. I think just on the daily time frames, just so we can take a look at everything. Maybe the 65. We'll see what kind of time we have here. So the VIX is important today as well. So we're doing this video about noon Eastern Standard Time, and if you're interested in getting these intraday, consider becoming a YouTube member for 99 cents. And things have been going really well in the Discord. It's really fun there. And I went through all this. I posted these in the Discord already, I believe yesterday. So let's jump into it. We have ES. It doesn't matter. SPX. You could use any of them. SPY. I call this the dumb money indicator. And this is where you have the HYG. This is a high yield bonds. You have lower highs here. That's typically indication. And I say typically because I'll show you the other example that that we're not confirming these new highs here. You see higher highs in the market, lower highs in HYG, the high yield bond. And so this was an exception. At this point, we had a triangulation here. Price was going down, and then price was going up here. And so we did have a correction from it. So I'm not saying that that was necessarily the top. I am fairly convinced that this is the top, but we did get our correction out of that move. So and I guess the first indication was when this broke out to a higher high. And this is a lower high. This again broke down and then started to move up with each other. So that was kind of like the indication that price action was going to go higher. So I'm going to, so you don't have to look at my screen load and stuff, I'm going to pause the video in between each indicator. So a quick look at the Dow Jones theory. And this one is not indicating any divergences at this point. They're actually confirming each other. So, I'm not going to hide different things just to make a storyline, but this would be the typical divergence that you'd be looking for here. So as price action was going up, the price action in DJT, which this is the Dow DIA, it's the ETF. And this is DJT, it's the Dow Jones Transports. And so you had the divergence there. And again, it played out, but just for a correction, and then price ended up moving higher. This was the opposite. You had a higher high here, and you had a lower high, and so they diverge in different ways to indicate, what might be happening, and you got a correction at that point as well. So at this point, nothing to see here. Let's move on to the next. Okay, taking a look at SPY. We're going to use I think I like SPX better on this one. I think I have more markings on there. So let's go to default. And the McClellan oscillator, very popular tool. This entire move, so you have, for example, this move here. Let me see if I have more markings on. Maybe on the daily time frame. Okay, so I did work this out. Okay, so for these different moves, again, you have the breadth of the market, and then you get a correction, and then oversold. All right, so that again resets. You have a move up, and in this time frame, not confirming. Plus, we're at resistance. Not confirming the move higher, negative divergence here. This is a really popular and very, very good indicator. It's very reliable, and you can go through that on many things. We used it way back here as well for these moves. let's see, the McClellan summation. Now this one I like to use for the extreme bull scenarios. We get to that point and typically there is a correction from there. So every peak here was in that extreme mode. Peak here didn't quite make it there, but still that barely a correction. New high, again, new highs, and another correction there. And you see this at this point, we got our correction from here and then made a new high way down here. But here's the caveat on this one. We kept staying in this bull area, okay, holding on to that bull. This tends to trend. Way back here, on here, we had a trend and it kept getting lower highs, lower highs. We had that going on here, so clearly we're thinking we're going to get something, some kind of reaction. Well, notice this correction right here, big move that we had here. Not confirmed. We had a bullish divergence at this point. So there is some interpretation to do with these markets here, comparing with the McClellan summation index as well. And so you have the bullish divergence in that move, and then it continued higher. Now, once again, we are not confirming these moves here. We're holding on, and this I suspect is why we're pausing here. A lot of times it takes many days just to make a top. There's probably 2 weeks of trading days right here just to make a top. And you see it was a major top there. That's probably 6 trading days about right there. Okay, so it takes time. We're on 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 days of trading in this range. So, I mean, that's, it feels like forever, but it's really nothing. So again, so we're holding this kind of pivot here, this bull bear pivot, and let's see if we start to break those lows here with any divergence or any reversal that plays out. So just some things I just wanted to show you. Balance of power, negative divergence, not confirming this move. The advanced decline. This is a good one because this is very rare. Let me go back just a little bit more. I think 5 years should be enough. Okay, so I have these marked down already. It's very rare that you get a divergence on the advanced decline cumulative average. And so back here in the top of 2021 going into 2022, we had our divergence here, a very rare occurrence from this top to this top. And that's what set off this move to the downside. Major top, right? I think that was about a 20% move or so. And we're at that point again where we're creating divergence. You know, could we get another little high here? Absolutely. Diverge some more. But this is just a rare occurrence, and this is a very good indication that we're near or at the end of our move here already. Okay, and last one here, we're going to take a look at the money flow index. Pretty good at showing divergences. You have a positive one here. You had the negative divergence going up here, brought us a correction. Same thing with this one here. These two peaks brought us a correction. And we're looking at these now creating divergence here as well. From this peak to this peak to this peak. Non-confirmation there. At least from there to there. Okay. And then we have volume profile. That's not going to say anything, but look at the thin volume here compared to way back here. So clearly this range we're going to test back on that range. There's no doubt about that in time. And then, where we go to this volume node, we talked about this volume. I didn't show the actual volume profile, but we talked about this forming a triangle about 3 or 4 videos back, and that's where the volume node comes in. So I think that's ultimately where there's a decision made in the market when we get to these points. Trend. Very hard to interpret this. I'm not going to go through this. When we get to these extreme levels, we tend to have a correction. So we're not at any extreme right here so far. But if you notice just this little peak here on 1017, it's where we had a peak and a correction there. So you can have different things, but we're not showing anything in particular on this peak right here. So again, there's some most of our indicators show the negative divergence. That one does not at this point. So here's a good low. It marked a great low, actually. And then we're starting to diverge here at this point as well, right at the tops here. Yeah, I think that's it for that. So just let's go ahead and go through the major indices. I think just on the 65, let me pause it. Okay. All right. Sorry about the choppy video. Just want to go through a lot of those and just let you know that I am convinced that we are going to reverse, and that's imminent. So we have our bullish rising wedge. We're back to the top of that, slight throw over. And then you see my resistance point here. So in this very near term, what it looks like is we're trying to set a lower high. Okay, so this looks like an ABC correction here. We're in this resistance zone, the bottom of the zone. You can see it's clear that it's support, and we're having trouble with resistance here. Got above it, and this is the top of the zone. So again, checked back there, checking back again, and I don't know if it's PPI tomorrow. I wasn't sure if CPI would have did it today. We don't know those things, but what I can tell you is this is going to end up working out pretty soon. And what I would assume is that this is an impulse wave here, but you could we didn't make a high over this little high here, so that technically could be a 1-2, 1-2. And if price gets above this high, then it can be only one of two things, that either we're going higher or this is just a straight 1-2 and that may be a leading diagonal or something like that. But when we get to these levels, I don't do a bunch of, I don't go to the 15-minute and try to break down the whole Elliott waves or what kind of pattern it is. To me, I just keep it simple on the 65-minute. I'm looking for a lower high, okay? And so if that starts breaking on, we have our top in, then we can start projecting at this point. And if the top is in, let's go ahead and give a little projection, all right? Nothing wrong with that. So you see what it was. We had this 162% retracement from our previous larger correction. And that was that the last target, the last thing that we have available for this market to reject off of. And then that's all we did was test back to that today. So broke down from it, back tested. And so if the high is in for this lower high going into tomorrow, we can take our extension tool, Fibonacci extension, go from the top of the move to the bottom of the initial move. And again, this is assuming that this is one wave here, not a 1-2, 1-2. And so if that's the case, the bottom here and to the top there. And so this initial move, it's very likely that we can get to the 590. Now, if this is and they call it nesting, people call it nesting. If this is a 1-2, 1-2, I like to call it that as a setup. But if this is nesting as a 1 2 1 2, then this thing is actually going to be a little bit more bearish than we think. So these projections are going to be well out further. And see, if you had this first one here, that would only bring us to about the 590 area, and then you have the rest of this move to occur. So all those are nice if you're very conservative. You have a 590 move here. We also had that, if you want a little bit lower, 589, 590. That's about all you're going to get from that. But I suspect that you would see a much larger move to some of the 200, 300% extensions, especially if there's a catalyst off of a type of move like that. So we'll keep an eye, see if we get above here. Let's go to QQQ. And by the way, on the traditional technical analysis, it just seems very apparent where the first move would go to. If this is just we get an impulse 1 2 3 4 5, that we'd come down to this 580 area. That's our former breakout point from this formation here. All right, and that would bring us to the island gap zone here. We'd close some of this gap, and I suspect at that point, unless we're very bearish, that we get some sort of bounce. All right, so we're messing around with the options expected move right now. We have gone nowhere. This is where the closing price was from the week before. We're just oscillating around it, and it's just very likely that we'll hit either the top options expected move or the bottom. I obviously am looking for the bottom, and if you exceed that, price can accelerate. So what this could look like for the rest of the week or going into next week is this easily could happen in one day. This move, when we do reverse, it's going to be a big move. And then maybe we get a bounce here, back test right to the options expected move or so, or maybe we get a gap down and we back test that gap and then start heading lower. So that's what I'm looking for with this lower high to develop. On the Qs, very similar. Have a little downtrend line there. So it's kind of obeying that at this point. You should see a decisive breakout from there if this trend line is valid for a breakout and this is a flag formation. Instead, we're kind of rejecting off of it so far. Can adjust it to the tops right there. That looks a little bit better. And then again, I think the obvious move would be to test the bottom of this trend line here of the wedge, and that would bring us down to about 500. Maybe get a little bounce. We could even back test the top of the wedge because that would be considered a throw over. Price wants to discover if it's going to validate this wedge or not. It might bounce clearly up here and then break down further at that point. And this isn't showing the exact time relationship going there. And speaking of, sorry to jump around, I did not mention that time cluster that we have on SPY. It's pretty important because it's today and tomorrow. So we're in that time window right now. And also on the VIX, that's the same time window. So we're looking for something to happen. This might be considered a top today. Tomorrow might be considered a bottom, if the move is large and gets down to the 580 area. So with price being up here at this point, today could be considered a top. So that's what we'll be looking for with this time price relationship. And I'll do a full video on this, but just to give you a clue of how we get these time and price relationships, in the near term, and we do this on all time frames, we take the bottom of a move and maybe compare it to another bottom. So we take our time ratio tool, pick a bottom, put the relationship to another bottom, and then it gives us some clusters out in the future for time relationships. Then you do it again, bottom to top. And then you do it again, bottom to bottom here. And you look at the different relationships that end up clustering together. And that gives us these clusters. And we, at that point, we suspect that there will be a reversal wherever time and price come together. Okay, so if you make new highs going into tomorrow, we have a little cluster. We have a couple time relationships on 1114. So maybe tomorrow we make a new high. That might be the high for this relationship, and then we look for a reversal going into it. So that just helps guide us on possible reversals, especially when you're in such conditions that we are with negative divergence all over the place. All right, sorry to jump around too much. We talked about the Qs. We're just looking for a lower high. That's it. We make a new high, fine. Maybe the Qs make a new high and SPY does not. That would be a sign of a divergence in itself. Let's do SMH. SMH is clearly diverging from the market, but we're getting into some conditions here where we're oversold and we have positive divergence. So with this game that the market is playing, perhaps with PPI tomorrow, we see a little strength here in SMH. Looks as if we have a 5-wave move down, an impulse. So I would suspect a lower high. Okay, so if and when this breaks out, I suspect a lower high at that point and then further down. All right, and so tomorrow we still might not have anything going on. This whole week might be an inside candle or a indecision candle, excuse me. And so we have to be ready for that. It's just, theta decay. Our options are decaying, but I will add on more positions at that, and you will see those probably tomorrow. But again, this might break out, hold the market up a bit while IWM starts to break down. All right, so it's kind of in a setup in itself right now. And you see the top of this wedge, fake break. We're down underneath, back tested. And at this point, I feel as if we're just getting a lower high. So IWM might have had its high in. We have, again, negative divergence here with that new high from the election. Higher highs here. Lower highs here, negative divergence here, and then a breakdown. So we're getting a little headwind here from the slow stoke pointing up, but we're starting to break down at this point. And taking a look, might just be getting a lower high. And then, like I said, maybe this gets really weak here. We only made it to the 50%, and it starts breaking down and closing the gap, while SMH is actually bouncing for 1% or 2%. So that could hold the market again right in its place while everything rotates. DIA, same thing. So if SMH is bouncing, maybe IWM and DIA are collapsing and holding the market right in the middle. In VIX, so VIX is getting down to the options expected move. That just happens to be where the gap is. So do we close the gap? We have 2 gaps down here. Do we close those? It's possible going into tomorrow. Again, if nothing happens because of rotation, maybe we close that gap there and then we start ascending. We did break this low. That's what I was expecting. And then price was just holding up here. But that's what I was expecting. And now it makes sense that this is an ABC move to where we're not going to get these new lows. We're actually just making a higher low. And then now price can move to the upside as soon as it's ready. So again, we have these lows here, high, and then lower high here, but then a lower low. I think that's an ABC formation. We're getting into the timing window for some cycles. This is not mine. This is Ask Slim. This is not my work, so I'm not going to harp on this. This is just where he had some brackets there. Those are cycle brackets. I don't have that education yet, and I will be taking the class pretty soon here, so I can do that on mini markets and hopefully show you guys some new stuff with timing. Right now, I do most everything with time ratio, the Fibonacci ratios. Okay, so we'll be looking for some sort of reversal candle on here, maybe leading into tomorrow, or like I said, we have to be ready for this week just to be chop and nothing happening. But that's pretty much all I got for you guys. Sorry that, you know, we're just kind of teaching and wasting some time here while the market just wants to do pretty much nothing. Bitcoin just doing its thing, continuing higher. I think this is a blow off top. I think this move is complete. This is a wave 4, and it's just going parabolic for a parabolic move back to the downside. So that's what many of the meme stocks are doing. They're just catching up. So this is just a good example of that. We have stocks like Square. It just was annihilated. So it was playing catch up. Snow, Plug, GME, AMC, all these things moving. That's what your market is right now. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here, guys. Of course, the payment, all the payment sector, PayPal. All right, that's it, you guys. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.